All right, guys, we are back, and we're going to be talking about the new Valve documentary that came out today. And how many of you guys got a chance to watch it? Free to play.
Yeah, watched it.
Started watching, then got interrupted by some ChanManV show.
So am I the only one that saw it then? Oh, Jamman, you watched it, right?
Damn.
I've watched like 40 minutes of it. It's really good.
I watched it. Oh man, you've missed it. The best for me is the end of it. So you're in for a treat.
The ending is fantastic.
Yeah. Richard, get a chance to watch the whole thing?
I haven't watched it all.
No, really?
Dude, I've just launched a new build of my website today, so I've just been tinkering with that. But yeah, I got so far into it. I'm kind of a little bit at the moment. I mean, what amazing production value so far, and everything else that you'd expect. But a couple of things in it, I was a bit like, meh. But whatever. I'm sure it's all.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it again next, but it's really good.
It's fucking great.
Really
like it's a
good.
benchmark for for future documentaries for anything like this. Only the Smash documentary came close to this, and this blew way past that. Obviously, because there's a lot more money involved in it. The source filmmaker sections of it were just, I mean, great as a person that's played Dota. Just getting to see that level of fidelity is like, look how fucking cool this is. But also, from the perspective of someone I think that doesn't really know much about Dota, it did a really good job of displaying the key plays in a way that's easier to understand. When they showed Dendy's puck play from the Roshan pit, and it was, if you'd seen it just from the regular top down, if you know what Dota is all about, of course you understand it. But if you don't know anything about Dota, you probably don't see how impressive that is. But when they went with this full on source filmmaker machinimated section of it just looked great, and they just went out of their way to make every attack look incredible, and they even did facial expressions on the heroes and things like that.
How do they do that actually? How do they do the
source filmmaker? Source filmmaker. There's a really good channel
for that a long time.
Yeah, there's a great channel on YouTube that's done some of the best, like, most impressive stuff you'll ever find. I think it's called, is it called Swords? I think it's called, it's called Swords. Okay. He machinimated the Attack on Titan intro with Dota characters. He did a section from the F-Zero anime called The Legend of Tusk, which actually like has about 1 million views right now. It's that fucking good. You'll see the guy,
did he do like a zombie one with the filmmaker too, or am I thinking something else?
I think maybe. He did one called Ice Frog Buff's Phantom Lancer. That was fun. Went about as well as you would expect. He did, I think he did. Yeah, he did one called Dire Knights about a month ago. That was his longest one yet. They're all really, really good. But the fidelity you can get out of the source filmmaker is even better than how the game looks. You can really pump up the model quality. You can put a lot of effects and really interesting stuff on it, and you can animate. Even the lip syncing. If you go to Legend of Tusk and watch the lip syncing, it's really good. Like, shockingly good. I can't imagine how long he spent on it.
Well, I thought all the Team Fortress, I thought all the Team Fortress 2 sort of promotional material was brilliantly done.
It was also done
back when
in Source
that first came
Filmmaker.
out. Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, so to say how powerful a tool it is probably a bit of an understatement, because those movies were awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
as well.
Getting back to the documentary, it was a really nice touch using that, and like you mentioned, that Wisp move, it was like a completely different thing. It was amazing, like almost very cinematic moment. Yeah, exactly.
Different perspective.
But overall, just the personal aspect, to the documentary, I think was very, very well done. And
they picked 3 really good players for it, I felt. They all provided very different perspectives. It was great to hear from the families, and also hear like negativity from some of them as well, because it actually gave you a bit of a dose of reality in that one. And I appreciated that a lot. Yeah. Because it is very, very relevant. I like the fact that they basically focused on one tournament. They didn't try and say, let's do all 3 of the internationals. And it's like, no, they focused on the storyline, the build up to one event, and they had a really satisfying conclusion at just the right time. I think Richard was right. There's a bit of filler in there that is like, why is that there?
I think that's where I'm up to. Yeah, I think, literally, I'm probably about 25 minutes in.
Once you get to the last 20 minutes, there's no filler whatsoever. It's spot on. It ends at exactly the right time. The stuff about Dendy is obviously fantastic, as many people have pointed out, and it's astonishing. It's a really, really great documentary from the perspective of someone that knows esports, and it's something you could show someone that doesn't, and they get an idea. I think if I had one criticism, they almost overdid the whole, hey guys, it's $1 million. 1 million, 1 million, you hear me? It was $1 million. And they kept doing that because I almost think that they were looking to try and appeal in the simplest possible terms to people that didn't play the game by saying, look at how much money's involved in it, because now you'll take it seriously, which is a bit unfortunate. It would be nice to take it seriously on the basis of the fact that these are professionals, pouring their passion into something that actually takes a shitload of work and skill to be good at. But I guess you can't expect too much. But
Paul, what do you
think?
Fucking
fantastic.
You've seen a bunch. You've seen a bunch.
I've been watching these things since they were originally called frag movies back in the early 2000s. Right. And they used Linkin Park's In the End on every track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen already... from what I've seen of it already, I can already tell that it's a totally different type of documentary. I think it really, from what I've seen so far, it really touches on that intangible thing that I always feel when I try and talk to other people about gaming, about why I'm so passionate about it, why I love games, what they can do for people, how they are. I have very few friends on both sides of my curtain, if you will. And I try desperately to talk to my normal friends without wanting to generalize my esports friends, but my ordinary friends that have nothing to do with esports and aren't really into video gaming struggle to understand what my passion is and why it's so great, as much as I will try and talk to them in a very eloquent way. And I think this really does speak. I could show this to my dad and he would totally get it. I could show it to one of my friends who has no interest in gaming whatsoever, and he would totally understand the concepts behind it, because they're general. They're very it could almost be about any sport, really. These guys could be darts players. They could be professional green bowls champions for a week. The point is it's very human, and I love that about it. I also love that it's come out in many other languages. I know that they've done Russian and German and Korean and Chinese, and I think that's really great as well. I think other movie makers could learn a lot from doing it like that. It makes it much more international and gives it more of a global feel. And just one small fun story, which I found out today, which is, this is a bit of bragging rights, by the way. So I noticed that it's coming out from a number of people that tweeted it. I'm like, yeah, great. I've been really looking forward to watching this. And one of the tweets mentions the 3 players, and it shows their handles. So, of course, I think I should support these players. I should follow them. I should make sure I'm following these 3 players. And I click on Dendy, and it says, follows Paul Challoner. And I'm like, what the hell? Why am I not following this guy? That's ridiculous. So he was following me and I wasn't following him, which is, sorry, Dendy. My bad. But yeah, overall it's great.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Well, go ahead.
I just wanted to say as well, like when TB was talking about the benchmark in esports documentaries, I mean, like before Smash, it was so poor. Like it was such a low bar. I think what we had, Frag
still is mostly.
Yeah, Frag was the closest thing, right?
Yeah, and Frag is hugely flawed as a documentary. Production values are pretty poor. But
we had the Nip one recently as well, which was actually very good.
Well, even State of Play was it was alright.
Yeah, I mean, people were talking about State of Play.
State of Play was good.
Yeah, State of Play was good.
Not
on this level, it's good.
But
I was comparing it to Sons of StarCraft, and by that standard, it's fucking awesome.
See,
you're baiting me this show. I can tell, TV.
I don't think you
were prepared.
Was not very good.
I wasn't going to mention it. I bought Artosis a beer at IEM as well from the same drunkenly purchased round. That I got a Blizzard employee for knowing.
Well, it's good that you paid your tithe to the Lord of Esports, Richard.
That's what I said to him. I said, if you're gonna fuck somebody, you better buy them the lube, right? So that's what I did.
Wow.
That's true as well. I was pretty wasted. So anyway, the point I was clumsily making just was that the bar is pretty low, but hopefully this will spur people on to actually learning things like narrative Sons of StarCraft, things that not just a bunch of fucking talking head interviews with
stories
music
together.
Yeah.
To have pacing being a fairly important aspect of it, having a proper mic that actually works. That's usually.
We've still got Star Nation. Star Nation is coming. It's going to blow all of us away, I promise.
Hey, my interview in Star Nation is fucking great, and they'll probably cut it. I can pretty much guarantee it. Because it was like 5
years ago. Exactly.
But, I mean, as we saw from, it's all credit from Free-to-Play, that was about a tournament that was in 2011. And it was still very relevant, even if it was quite a while ago. So I think you can't really have the expectation that documentaries are going to be quick. And if they are quick, they're probably going to be shit.
Anyway.
No,
not good ones.
Not.
I mean, it takes...
Because
I try and explain this to people that watch the show, because someone legitimately asked me a question after the weekend. How much money and effort and time goes into producing something like Katowice? And I said, well, it's a very difficult question to answer in a very small space. But generally speaking, we started planning Katowice 9 months ago, and it took nearly 150 people to deliver it over 3-4 days. So, and it takes an enormous amount of skill and clever people to be able to do that live, let alone, imagine trying to deliver those 4 days, but produce it in the same way when you're 2 or 3 people, because that's what effectively we're talking about with these documentaries. So of course they're going to take a long time. But no, for me, I mean, I think the Machinima stuff, probably the most enjoyable I've ever watched since I'm still seeing Breen, which I think came out, 10 years ago.
Is it?
And of course, I think we're overlooking King of Kong, of course, as well. Which
absolutely.
I haven't seen that.
I guess technically that is an esports documentary.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Billy Mitchell is pretty much the first esports legend.
Yeah. And that is a hell of a documentary. And again,
it's
what we're talking about.
It's
the human element. It's like you say, you could show it to anybody, whether they're a fucking closet nerd or whatever, they would get it because of the human aspects to it. And I say, hopefully we'll get more documentaries that sort of capture that. Because there's some great stories in our scene that never really get told, even though, exactly. It's so sad.
All right, well, speaking of, we talked a little bit about Smash. Why don't we transition into this? One of the questions, I guess. There's
one of the quick things I want to mention real fast, just for people, like when you think about a documentary, it's not supposed to be something that you watch for like current events too. So like it might be really fucking old, but the documentary isn't necessarily meant to appeal to people like in the game, like that are like super part of that. Like that's not who it's intended. That's not the intended audience. As hard as that is to hear, and as hard as it is to understand sometimes. So like it's not necessarily a bad thing if a documentary comes out and it's covering events like 3 or 4 years ago. It's not supposed to be super relevant to what's going on today. Like that's what we have Team Liquid articles for, the StarCraft subreddit, or these talk shows or whatever. Like that's what that covers.
Yeah.
No, this for me is a piece of history.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as you can talk about documentary, even I suppose the Day 9 Tasteless Artosis 2005 WCG thing that got put together on YouTube is basically a short documentary. And that's from a different game, and it's from 2005. It's still fucking relevant. It's still,
of course.
And more to the point, it's just enjoyable to watch.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, TB, why don't we get you one of these questions, and it has to do with a pretty relevant
I'm so pumped to see how TV answers this.
Okay, so taking a question, even though we're going to be taking questions from subs, but this one question is for TB in the Reddit thread, and it has to do with Super Smash Bros. Melee, which Team Liquid recently picked up 2 players on, so kind of relevant here. Basically, he says, in the past, TB made a comment about Super Smash Bros. Melee saying, "I don't take a party game seriously as an esport. Neither should anyone else. Nintendo certainly didn't. Melee is getting back into both EVO and MLG. EVO 2013 was the biggest Melee tournament ever with almost 700 entrants. The Smash documentary is bringing more exposure to the scene, and now TL is sponsoring Melee players. What are your thoughts now?"
I was completely wrong. I mean, it's obvious. I made that tweet, I think, 2 years ago, and it was around the time when people were talking a lot about the kind of future of Smash and when the next one was going to come out, and the fact that Brawl had been a bit of a departure from Melee, and the fact that the creator had sort of said himself that they didn't want it to kind of be a competitive fighting game, and they put things like tripping into Brawl, which was apparently not a good idea and people didn't really like it. But I got to watch the Smash documentary, and I actually watched Smash at EVO as well, and I was completely and totally wrong on that one. The game actually requires a shitload of skill. And I think what it opened my eyes to most is the idea that even if a game doesn't start off intending to be competitive. It can be made competitive by the people that are playing it, and there's always going to be more depth than meets the eye to any title. Yeah. And in terms of Smash, it was elevated to just this ludicrous level of skill that has so much really interesting stuff going on and so many mind games involved in playing it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to be wrong about that because I found another esport that I actually like watching. And I only tuned into Evo to watch Super Street Fighter, and I ended up watching Smash and actually having a great time watching Smash. So that's fantastic.
I'm going to completely disagree with Totalbiscuit there. You can't just say something and then change your mind later on the internet. Like, like what Broodlord BBQ said next. Like, I agree with him completely. He will just change the definition of the words he said to make it look like he was always correct. Just like he will never do Let's Plays while having 50 episodes of casually playing Hearthstone on his channel because they don't fit his personal definition of Let's Play. Like, definitely. Like, if you said it on the internet at one point in time, like, you can't just like change your mind. Like, I don't understand where you get that from. That's pretty fucked up. But.
So Paul, when are we going to see a fighter on?
Have you have no idea how much, just a random, you have no idea how many arguments I've gotten on the internet, and somebody will link like something that I literally said 4 years ago. And no, like like from 2011. What the fuck do you want me to say, dude? Like, I wish I could dig through your entire life's work of stupid shit that you said when you're 19 years. Like, come on, like, okay, sorry, go ahead.
There are plenty of things that are on the internet that I fucking regret and I can't get rid of. And you just gotta fucking live with it, take it on the chin, say you're a stupid cunt back then, and move on with your life.
Definitely. I mean, people grow and change. Like, come on. Like, how are you gonna fucking cite something that somebody said like 3 years ago? Like, it has any relevant? Like, Jesus fuck. I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, but fucking like, I wouldn't want to be myself from 3 years ago. Like, we're all still relatively young. Like, holy shit, calm the fuck down on that.
I'm okay with myself.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind.
I'm actually okay with myself.
Heavy waistline, actually, that would be all right.
Yeah, so Paul, when are we going to see Smash in an IEM event or any ESL event?
I think IEM is unrealistic right now. We generally stick to 2 games, so it'd be hard to see how it would get in, and it's not my call. I don't see it in IEM any day soon. In fact, I don't see any fighting games in there. We do have ESL 1, which is also a similar line product, which we're obviously doing a Dota 2 event in Frankfurt in the summer in the World Cup stadium, which we're really excited about. And I think that's the first of many big things that we'll do around the ESL 1 tournament product. And can't say for sure whether we'll have Smash, whether we'll have other fighting games, but it's where I cut my teeth. And I have a lot of friends in the fighting game world, a lot of friends. And I've seen many of them start to get picked up. Perfect Legend, obviously, at Fnatic. It's great to see these guys finally getting into pro teams because they really deserve it. Some of them are the most colorful characters across all genres of esports, no doubt about it. I mean, Ryan Hart has been super, super great for many years, and he's a real character. Especially coming out of England, because we tend to all be fairly boring. But he's another great character and a great player as well. A multitude of different fight games. I got into fight games very early on as an arcade guy. Didn't really follow it up too much, but enjoyed the hell out of all the games. But what really gave me massive respect for these guys was when I started playing DOA, and you read through the frame rate books that these guys put together, and you're just like, holy shit, really? You're going to study the amount of frames it takes to make a throw or a punch or a combo, and you're going to figure out how many frames you can get that in before they can have as many frames back to fight you with something that's like a counter? Really? I'm just mashing buttons here, but I'm mashing them in such a way that I know the combination of the buttons, and I'm thinking I'm really good. I'm not thinking about frame rates and stuff. So yeah, I have massive respect for the fighting scene. Loved Evo, and a bit like TB really. I tuned in for what I would call the pros, and ended up watching a lot of Smash. But
right, exactly.
And that's no disrespect to the Smash guys. So I'm really pleased for them as a community. They seem really vibrant, really cool. Obviously, documentaries really helped them, and now being at MLG also. So best of luck to all the guys in the Smash scene, and I just hope that it also leaks out a little bit more into some of the other scenes in fight games as well. It would be great to see them, and I'm gonna try and put a word in somewhere to someone's ear about the fact that we should be featuring some of these fighting games at ESL 1.
Cool.
And see where we go from there.
I'm calling right now. Future fucking esports. At some point in time, there will be speedrunning happening on some stage in fucking MLG or some fucking tournament. I guarantee it will happen.
No.
I know it will happen.
That's already happened.
Guys. Have you seen the amount of players playing Gary's mod still? Seriously, I'm going to get into IEM next year.
Gary's mod? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Just on the speedrunning point, it has actually happened several times with WoW, where they've actually done speedrunning on a dungeon with 2 guilds. They get them in there, and there's a fucking prize, and they've put that on stage and stuff. Huh. Yeah, I mean, competitive speedrunning could absolutely end up being a thing. Why not?
There's enough interest for it, that's for sure.
Well, awesome games done quick gets fantastic views. There's no question about that. And that kind of comes back around the point, doesn't it? If there's an audience to it, then it's a fucking esport, right?
It would be so entertaining. It would be so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it's a shame that we don't have, our old friends to fight Twitch in the video wars, because right now, if they'd set one up and, you've got Twitch plays Pokemon on one side, and then you could have, a Zubu plays Pokemon on the other side, and then I'll shoutcast it, and then, fuck me, it's a massive competitive esport suddenly, and that's hundreds of thousands of players.
It's a 30-day event. It's a 30-day event.
30-day consecutive event, and I have to read you the team names now, so please welcome from Twitch Plays Pokemon. Fuck me, there's 46,000 people.
You have described possibly the worst thing that has ever existed.
All right.
I am very, very glad that Twitch Plays Pokemon has lost its popularity. That fucking joke went on for long enough.
Steven does, and Steven fucking is very, very upset, I'm sure. But, all right, last thing, TB. I know TB wanted to I guess TB had some opinions, I guess, of Paul's Hearthstone casting.
I actually wanted to thank him. I wanted to thank him for his Hearthstone casting, because finally I can now say that I'm only the 2nd worst Hearthstone caster in the world. So Paul, thank you very much for that. You did me a great service this day.
Yeah, no, it was probably the worst casting I've done ever.
It's fucking hard to cast, isn't it? Like it's
really
not.
It wasn't that actually. What many don't understand, and this is not me making excuses. It was pretty terrible. Although Mike Morheim said on Twitter that I did really well, which was very kind of him, Mike. But that's complete
He's
bullshit.
A kind soul.
Mike's nice,
the point is, right? We started off and it was fine, and I was into, and I was always going to be the 25% guy, and I was always going to lead the questions, and I was going to be the dumb guy just asking the stuff. And Kalaris, he spent a real ton of time on it, and he really, he knows most of his stuff, but he was new to it too, so we were always going to make mistakes between us, but that we weren't scared about that. We were just having some fun. But within 3 minutes, I had a shooting migraine, which just hit me under the eyes. And mainly it was because we'd been staring at the screen for about 30 minutes, and it had kind of some interlacing blurriness going on, and it killed me, absolutely killed me. And I went away in the middle. When we had that break and we had some downtime, there was some tech issues. I went away and got some really strong painkillers and came back. And I don't know if you noticed, but the last few minutes of the second semi-final, suddenly I came alive. I'm like, I remember this game. I've been playing this for weeks and months now. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, there's these cards and stuff. But to start with, I could not focus on anything other than this damned headache. And because Kalaris was doing a really good job, I was just like, just keep talking, dude. And I was like, and it, I was literally like, I can't see. And I'm telling the producer, fix the screen because it's literally doing my head in. And he's like, yeah, we're on it. It was bad. But aside from that, it still probably would have been the worst Hearthstone casting anyway. And I apologize to the community for ruining your game.
It was a lot of hat switching, because then Frodan came on, who's normally the 25% guy, and then he had to take on the 70%, and then Kalaris switched over to the 25% guy. So it was kind of funny, but overall it was fun. It was definitely a fun event, and those little card things were kind of cool too. You guys gave away. Yeah, they were very nice. The whole Hearthstone thing was really good fun. I did some FIFA just before that as well, and obviously did the main stage hosting that day as well. So it was a very long day. I got back to the hotel at I think it was something like 1:00 or something. Still in my suit, still in my bow tie, having been there for 15 hours or something on the last day. So yeah, it was a very, very long event.
and a long time leading into it. I mean, I think I haven't heard from Carmack in 3 days. I hope he's okay.
He's probably sleeping.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's sleeping until May. It's like hibernation time after the World Championships. I mean, it really does take it out of you. It's very difficult to explain to anyone that hasn't sort of lived through either a very large scale event like that, or, I remember the first meetings we had about it back in April, May last year, and it literally is. You're constantly living it all the time. So, yeah, it's very difficult to explain quite what it takes out of you when you're not just a host. If I was just a host, I would be tired right now. That should give you an idea of what it's like when you're trying to manage. I mean, it's the most people I've ever managed at an event as well. So I've never had 24 casters and observers and hosts and analysts and what have you to look after. And I definitely underestimated how hard that is, because the CS guys, apart from the first day, really didn't get enough love from me. And luckily I had Joe there to look after the league. So, yeah, it was tough. But that's no excuse. And as I said, I should have done much better.
All right, TB. Well, should we let you go? Or are you good? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. I will have to leave. But before I do, I'd like to remind you that Axiom merchandise is now available over at YouTube. No, actually, ReDeYeArcade.com. /collection. Let's try again. Wow, words. /collections/all/total-biscuit, which is terrible. It's probably easier just to find out. If you just go to ReDeYeArcade.com, click my name. We've got Axiom hats like this one right here, but better embroidered. We've got Axiom hoodies. We have Axiom Esports Polo and Axiom Esports T-shirt, which is actually the official shirt that our players wear. So, and they're all available for not $70 each. So, by all means, do feel free to check those out if you want to support the team.
Cool.
And apparently we might be being sponsored by the Bitcoin subreddit, although they haven't kind of got that sorted out yet, which is a bit weird, but hey, why not?
We may be. Okay, cool. Anyways,
we might be.
Thanks for being on, TV. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
and,
thanks a lot, all of you.
And then we'll take a quick break.
Do a show here, brother.
We'll take a quick break. We got one more segment, guys, or one more topic that we're going to talk about, the whole League of Legends, AHQ, and Promise thing. So we'll do that and then just end with some questions. All right, we'll be right back.
Somebody, oh, okay.
No, go on.
I was gonna say somebody posted a picture on the Stargate server. I don't know if it's real or not. I haven't done any fact checking. It's probably
All right, we are back, and it's time to talk a little bit more League of Legends. And this particular case, we're talking a little bit about some controversy and some a scandal. I mean, I guess that's the best way to classify it, right, Richard? Just an outright scandal here.
Yeah, a scandal that turns to tragedy. It's got it all. It's very Shakespearean.
Yeah, well, not quite tragedy, right?
I'd say I disagree. I'd say it still is
okay.
Tragedy.
Yeah. So
wait, why would you say it's not a tragedy?
Yeah, ChanManV.
Well, I mean, I mean, it definitely is a tragedy. Anyway, so okay, maybe it is a tragedy, but all right. But
okay.
So, anyways, we're talking about obviously the gambling, the gambling scandal that happened involving Promise, and he had a post that was explaining that he'd been involved in some match fixing involving his team AHQ and his the coach at the time, or the coach at the time, right? Is it manager or coach? It was Richard. Was it manager or coach at the time? Was involved in fixing?
I think it's the coach.
Coach, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're talking about the one that started it all. That was
the one that started it all. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was the coach, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the coach. Yeah, I think the coach was involved in fixing matches, and sure enough, that's what ended up happening. And we've had some crazy match fixing type of things in the past, particularly the whole Savior and Brood War. But this is the first that we've had in League of Legends, and it's happening over in in Korea. And Promise, posted this, and unfortunately, lots of things led to basically him almost committing or trying to commit suicide, right? Jumping off a 12-story apartment building. So, want to get you guys' thoughts. I know, Steven, the aftermath of it was these charitable kind of events and streams, and I know you had some opinions on that. But let's get to talking about the actual the gambling thing and the match fixing portion of it. Richard, what are your general thoughts on it to begin with?
Well, I mean, for me, not a great sort of esports really is growing, and it's getting to that stage now where I think it's being taken seriously. There's absolutely no doubt that anything that attacks the integrity of competitive gaming is something holistically bad. I mean, that's a very glib and basic statement to make. But it sort of highlights a problem that we've got with esports in Korea, which is it's so integral to our ecosystem to our industry's ecosystem. Yeah, it's so clandestine and closed off. And I'm not saying you wouldn't see these things happen elsewhere. For example, there was the Rock's Kiss incident in Dota 2, which was small time by comparison.
Sure.
But it has gone on. There has been allegations as well that were never substantiated. But this points to something that's endemic. It points to something that's gone on for a long time. And the worrying thing is, while we've highlighted a few individuals involved, it kind of points to it almost being a cultural issue. And as you rightly say, that we've seen it pop up before with the whole savior example from StarCraft. Now, I was blown away when I heard about it for League of Legends, but when I sat and reflected on it, I kind of thought, actually, if any esport this was going sort of happen to it, it would be this one right now. I know Riot don't have a lot of hands-on involvement in the Korean side of things, so it's. I know scandal is the right word. I mean, it's shocking, and I think it shows that Riot need to perhaps try and control their product a little bit more in Korea. So there is this almost like governmental body, what's the word, an ombudsman, if you like, somebody that's watching over the practices that occur within the competitive side of things. Just in regards to the aftermath, I mean,
I don't know if that's possible to get things to watch over it. I think this is one of those things where the only effective way to combat it is to reduce the incentives as much as possible, because it's just one of those things that will always, it's like, I don't know, this to me is akin to like ticket scalping. Like ticket scalping is never, ever, 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 ever going to not be a thing. People will do it until the day they die just because it's so they're saving the money, they're making the money. I don't know, when it comes to something like this, like throwing matches, like it can be hard to prove, it can be easy to set up, it can be easy to hide. I don't know, like I don't know if the Korean programming scene in Korea is similar to the Korean one in StarCraft 2, but like when you got like the perfect storm of things set up, where you got like a super high viewership game with really talented players in the top echelon of like millions of players who are making no money. Like, that's like the perfect storm where you go through all the regulations you want. They're going to try to find some way to buck the system to try to make some kind of money. They're just, I don't know, like that's how I feel in that kind of situation.
You make a very good point. I think one of the fundamental problems you've got actually is almost like the nature of esports careers for players. It almost feels smash and grab in the sense that you've got a very limited amount of time to earn big money. And if you don't maximize that earning potential, you're going to find yourself in your mid-20s, sometimes your late 20s if you're considered a veteran. And you're going to look back at the money you could have had, and maybe you're not even set and you've got to go get a shit job. I mean, or you've put off your education and then you're back to square one, you've got to do that. So I think that's a problem. But I don't think there's anything you can really do to address it in one kind of thing. I mean, like League of Legends, the players there live... I'd say like gods compared to even what StarCraft 2 players were doing in 2010. I mean, we have seen this benchmark constantly be pushed forward in terms of how much you can live off, how much money you can earn. If that game still is susceptible to people being like, well, I'm going to throw a win for, a few thousand here, whatever, I don't think it's necessarily a problem you're going to address, because effectively you're talking about greed coupled with the pressure to maximize all the sacrifices you've made in a very short space of time. Sure. So I think that's a problem. I also think as well, just to pick up on the point that you were just talking about prior to that, where you were kind of talking about, you don't know if a governing body would be the answer. Well, right, we need gambling in esports. I genuinely believe this. I think one of the things that's going to help push esports... Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's nothing that... Right,
drives
certainly,
interest.
Yeah, certainly, and maybe I'm speaking from an English perspective, where in our country, gambling isn't taboo. Me and Paul would think nothing of a day down the pub, watching the football, and we'll nip next door to the bookies and we'll have a flutter. I know in America and certainly in other countries, and indeed in Korea, there are certain taboos about how and when you can bet. But I think gambling makes sports way more exciting. I think it gives you a personally invested stake in something. It drives interest. It's a talking point. And indeed, even though it was illegal in America for a long period of time, it wasn't abnormal in sports broadcasting to have somebody that was kind of an inside man, like Jimmy the Greek, if you want to go way back. And he would have his whole section where he'd be like, oh, well, this is the inside scoop, and this is why you should bet against them and bet against that. But of course, we totally don't endorse betting, but we're talking about betting. So I think esports would grow and flourish if we had an environment where people were encouraged to gamble. I've seen lots of sites come and go. I've worked with some of them. I helped, I think it was Paddy Power, most recently. They ran a few campaigns where people could bet on esports events, and we helped them, me and my company, Heaven Media, do the odds for that. Because obviously they didn't have the knowledge, so we compiled little dossiers so they could do the odds. And I think it made it very exciting for the people who placed bets. They withdrew, I think, because people made too much money on it, to be honest. Because if you know esports, it's very easy to know who's going to win, who's going to lose, what's going on. It's very susceptible. But yeah, I think if we could get an environment where sports betting could be pure and untainted, I think that would only be better for esports. So I think a regulatory body is essential to achieving that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, a regulating body, and I know Cass was trying to break, kind of crack down on some of this stuff, but the thing is these players knew that was happening, right? And they're just in such. I mean, I feel really bad for the players, and obviously Promise in particular. I think everybody really feels for in this particular case, but these players know what's going on, yet they're in a no-win situation, right? They can't report that this is going on. I mean, if they report this is going on, then they're basically the team that they're on is just gone now, right? So their current employer basically is gone, and if they don't, then they're kind of in a really, really tough bind too. Maybe even from a legal standpoint, right?
But this has gone on. There's been all sorts of examples of this. I mean, for example, when a player broke rank in career and I can't even remember the name of the organization. I'm sure someone in Twitch chat will educate me. But I remember when somebody broke rank, and what was happening was there was an organization in career that was literally keeping players in the player house and making them play for like 8 hours at a time, illegally boosting League of Legends accounts. And when a player broke rank and talked about it, they were kicked out of the house and kind of disgraced. I don't recall any formal action from Riot. I could be wrong, so I apologize in advance if that's not true.
Okay.
But I don't recall anybody stepping forward and saying this is bullshit. This is a terrible exploitative way to treat young people. This is effectively a criminal enterprise, and it goes against the spirit of everything we're trying to achieve with our game. And I know this goes on in multiple esports titles. We're talking about League, but obviously multiple esports titles have these problems. And there has to be somebody that can step in and do something about it. Like you say, who do the players go to?
Exactly. Paul, thoughts on this?
Not too different from the other guys, really. I agree with Richard. I think we need betting in esports. It's it's one of those things that legitimizes other sports, and I think it's big enough now to be successful. I think obviously the match fixing, it didn't really surprise me as it did Richard, more because I've seen and heard of this stuff before in other esports for many years, right. But also because it, again, although it negatively impacts esports, it's like any other sport. There wasn't much betting on football in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, but then in the 90s it became popular, and now you can bet on 100 nuances within one match, let alone a weekend. It started off with the pools in England, where we would try and predict which games were going to be a draw, and now it's huge business. And the reason for that is that it makes the bookies money. That's the first point, but also once you then get into it, it invites these kind of scenarios. Just today, one of my own players of my football team is facing sanctions because he bet on the outcome of matches, and he's not allowed to do that as a Newcastle United football player. And it's not that uncommon now in sports. And when something explodes as big as League of Legends has and esports has as a whole, it's inevitable that we're going to get the same kind of stuff. The key now is regulation, and I don't know how we do that. I don't know if a governing body is the right thing, but it definitely needs some kind of regulation.
I mean, those situations